hour of 6 o'clock, starting another week of broadcasting here on 95.7. We are in the book of Daniel, chapter 2. Glad that you're along with us this morning. We had started, I believe it was Thursday, on the beginning of this book. And if you want to check out our intro plus chapter 1 and a little bit of chapter 2, you can find those programs on Facebook, LV Cornerstone, YouTube, LV Cornerstone Church, and we are currently live on those platforms right now, as well as with you, 95.7 FM listeners. We want to let you know is that prayer line is open at 505-425-3717 till 8 o'clock this morning. Also, a reminder, well, that's not what I wanted to do on YouTube. Also, a reminder that you can send in your prayer request to cliff@klyn@gmail.com. And Andrea is with us already, jumping in on our Facebook page, listening to the program. Also, Tim Turner. So, good morning, Tim. Good morning, Andrea. And from Tim and Andrea, good morning to everybody here in Las Vegas. So here we are in the second chapter of the book of Daniel. Very important because there's going to be themes in this second chapter that are going to carry over to other sections of the book of Daniel, and not only to the book of Daniel, but even to the book of Revelation. But we'll probably just keep it a lot to the book of Daniel instead of jumping too much into Revelation, because unless I get some revelation concerning that, the revelation of Revelation, we won't be doing much of that. Anyway, how was your weekend, everybody? Hopefully, how was your weekend, Tim, Andrea? How was you guys' weekend? Everything going okay here? Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, what has happened so far? What has happened so far, and we got this on Friday's program, is that Nebuchadnezzar, the king of the Babylonian Empire, and keep that thought in mind, empires. We're going to be talking about empires today, okay? What we learned was that the king of Babylon had a dream. And he calls in all the magicians and necromancers and seance. Well, those all. What would happen is that Nebuchadnezzar's would overcame many other cultures, and that's why we consider him empire. He was an empire maker. So Egypt at the same time, they did the same thing in their heyday. Okay, but Nebuchadnezzar would bring these people in from the cultures that he had overcome, and he would use them. You know, we saw Daniel. What Daniel and the young men that were with him were put into a school for 3 years. And that was on Monday. Well, that was on Thursday and Friday's program. I'm not going to get into it too much because I think we have a lot of material left on the second chapter of Daniel where we're at. And when he would battle and defeat these countries, he would bring in, even some of their religious people. You know, that's where we get all the magicians and the different names of the different type of people that were serving around Nebuchadnezzar. So he has a dream. He calls all of the, the religious, let's just call them the religious people. You know, that's kind of a broad term. He would call in the religious people, and then when he would call in the religious people, he would, he asked them, he says, I've had a dream. It's very disturbing, and I want you guys to interpret the dream. And the magicians, necromancers, whoever, let's go. I need to get more than just magician there. And let's see, he gave command to call the magicians. the astrologers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans to tell the king his dream. And they said, okay, tell us the dream, and we will be more than glad to interpret it for you. He says, well, this time we're going to do a little bit different, boys. This time you're going to tell me the dream and the interpretation. And they said, wait a minute. Nobody's ever asked the astrologers and the magicians and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans. Nobody's ever asked them to do anything like that before. So just give us the dream, stop playing with us, and we'll give you the interpretation. He says, I ain't playing with you, and if I don't get an answer, if I'm not satisfied what you guys have to say, if you don't tell me the dream and then the interpretation, he says, we're going to have a firing squad, or maybe they're going to hang them from the gallows. Maybe they're just going to burn their houses with them and their families. And I don't know. And they say we can't do that. That's beyond our abilities. And what happens is that he starts killing some of the magicians or sorcerers or, these peoples that we're talking about. They come up to Daniel and his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, and they say, well, what's this all about? They tell him the story. The king wants to know the interpretation and the dream. And Daniel says, wait, give us a little while. Let me go talk to the king for a while. If he gives me a little bit of time, we just might be able to pull this off. Our God. And we've been talking a lot about favor, the favor of God in the middle of the testing, in the middle of the trials that God has for us. So here's where we are at in verse 17 of the second chapter of the book of Daniel. Then Daniel went to his house. He made the decision known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they might seek mercies from the God of heaven concerning the secret, so that Daniel and his companions might not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. So this is a time for, desperate times, desperate measures. Lock the refrigerator. Nobody's eating nothing. Everybody pull out your prayer rugs and let's get to business, boys. Then verse 19, and this is really where we left off on Friday's program. The secret was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. So Daniel blessed the God of heaven. God answers their prayer. Doesn't tell us how long it took. I don't think the king was going to be very patient. I think this was probably maybe a couple of 2-3 days. And there wasn't any room for stalling. Remember that Daniel already has favor along with Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah with the king. Not only with the king, with the captain, with the eunuch. God is showing himself strong in the midst of the trial that they're going through. And favor has been coming their way because they have stood up for the truth. So the secret was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. Doesn't say that Daniel had a dream. There's a difference between a vision and a dream, even though they pretty much end up at the same place. But Daniel has a vision, and Daniel sees what Nebuchadnezzar had dreamt, and he worships God. Daniel answered and said, verse 20, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. So there's Daniel's prayer. Worship, thanksgiving, of praise, whatever it is. Daniel said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. Daniel and his 3 companions had every opportunity to cave into the pressure that was coming his way. They're hundreds of miles away from home. Everybody's towing the Nebuchadnezzar line. Let's just be friends and let's just, there's nothing we can do now. He's destroyed our countries. So let's just give in and learn their culture, their language, and their sacred writings, and we'll just play the Nebuchadnezzar game because that's the way it's going. Well, it wasn't good enough for Daniel and for Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. They held the line. And to me, that is extremely important. Mr. Missler is in the middle of teaching on 6640 from the book of Jude. Only one chapter in the book of Jude. He's taking a verse at a time. The book talks about apostasy, a warning to the church about apostasy, a problem that we have seen in the last 3 years in America like never, ever before. In my days of being, a follower of Jesus Christ, a Christian, that I have never seen apostasy like we see it today. And here, Daniel and his friends had the opportunity just to give in, just to say, well, let's apostatize, man. God allowed us to come here. The temple is destroyed. Israel is in ruins. We'll probably never see it again. Let's just follow whatever they want. No, he would do it. They stayed strong in the midst of it. And God, what the Bible says is that promotion comes from the Lord. Do you realize, watch this, promotion comes from the Lord. Self-promotion does not come from the Lord. Do you realize that Lucifer tried self-promotion? Look at the opportunity. Here's another glaring example. In the time of David, Absalom, his oldest son, tried to promote himself, not waiting. See, Absalom should have been the next king instead of Solomon if the traditional lines were observed. Firstborn son, double blessing, everything would have been set up in preparation for him to be the king. Solomon ended up to be the king following his father David because he did not try to self-promote. And there are examples over and over in the Bible of people who try to promote themselves. It happens in churches all the time. It happens in organizations all the time. Especially faith-based, because that's really what we're doing. Somebody just decides, well, I can do it better, and they see the glory and they see some of the good things about it, and don't realize that there's a bigger picture that goes along with it, and then they find out later, my God. But promotion comes from the Lord, and God is promoting Daniel and Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah because of their faithfulness, that they were willing to take a stand in their times. They did not apostatize. Many of the people, Israel had already apostatized in Judah by the time that Nebuchadnezzar is bringing them up in 3 different waves. He's going to bring it over about a 20-year or longer history. He's going to be bringing up different captives from Israel. And many of them, they were just going to fall into the Babylonian line. You know that the Bible still talks about Babylon way beyond the book of Daniel. You're going to find Babylon in the book of Revelation, not just the book of Genesis, not just the book of Daniel, but also you're going to find it there. And you have to realize, ladies and gentlemen, is that Babylon is always calling us as believers to start drifting away And I'm telling you, apostasy is a problem today. But those who are going to hold the line, like Daniel, that's why this is a very important book to me. The warning is there, but also the blessing is available. Daniel answered and said, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his promotion." God, the dude is ready for a promotion. He's already been promoted already. Him and his 3 companions have already been set higher above than a lot of the other people in his class. Look at it like a university. For 3 years he was going to be in that university. Babylon U. When and we saw this on Friday's program. It wasn't yesterday, but on Friday's program, when the king interviewed the Jewish men, the young men, they outshined all the other people that were there. You could imagine there were some Moabites, some Philistines, probably some Egyptians, from all over the known world of those days. So Daniel answered and said, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changes times and seasons." I better play a song and get us close to our normal weather time here on 95.7. What do we have up for us? Acquire the Fire singing "Just As I Am." Bottom of the earth. So Daniel answered.
Without one plea, that thy blood was shed.
30 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock, let's get into a weather report as I remind you that prayer line is open for you right now at 505 425 3717. Mostly sunny today, high near 77 degrees, east northeast wind at 15 with gusts today as high as 21 miles per hour. Tuesday, partly cloudy. Isolated thunderstorms are showing a 20% chance with a high near 81 degrees. West-southwest wind 4 to 13, gusts as high as 19 miles per hour. And on Wednesday, mostly sunny, high near 82. West-northwest wind 6 to 15, gusts as high as 21 miles per hour. So here's what we've been dealing with. Verse 2021. Daniel is blessing the Lord. Daniel has received a vision that explains the dream. Not only explains it, but it gives him the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had. No one else was able to do this. They wouldn't even attempt it. So Daniel answered, verse 20, and said, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his." Daniel's not taking credit, ladies and gentlemen. He's not saying, well, oh, yeah, look good. Yeah, no, Daniel is, and he's going to make sure that Nebuchadnezzar knows that this is God. This is a God thing. Get the favor in the midst of the trial and the test. And he knows where his source is, and he makes sure that he lets everybody know who his source is. An opportunity. Why this spiritual gifting and an anointing, perseverance, and the fruit of Daniel's life and it's not just Daniel, it's his buddies that go along with it. But we're going to highlight Daniel. The book is named after him, so it's easier to say Daniel than Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah anyway. But why? Because Daniel is going to highlight his God everywhere he goes. He gets the answer that him and his companions were asking the Lord from, and Daniel blesses the God of heaven. And he tells, for wisdom and might are his. You want true wisdom. You want true strength. It's going to come from God, not from self-promotion. And this is verse 21. And he changes the times and the seasons. God is the one who is in control of the times and the seasons. The old song, he's got the whole world in his hands. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He realizes that Nebuchadnezzar is sitting upon this throne of power, that the empire of the Babylonians is just as much a God thing as it is anything else. They're not serving God. They have their false gods. Satan is involved in this whole thing. We know where Babylon started, and as Babel, we understand how it's going to end up. But God is the one who really going to control only as much as God wants it to prosper. God is going to let it to prosper. And Daniel is okay with that. His uncle said, well, it is what it is. And in the midst of it, I think he's going to make the best out of it and still be faithful to God at the same time. Yes, it's a walk in a tightrope type of a situation. But he says God is the one who changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. It's not a time to say, well, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. Let's just go buy our piece of property up in the mountains someplace and build ourselves a cabin there and wait for the trumpet to blow. Take advantage. Don't check out. You don't have to. A lot of people, they're checking out. You don't have to check out physically to check out mentally. You just say it's over with, man. The heck with. They're all going to go to hell anyway. Jesus is coming to. No, we have this opportunity, and let's take advantage of the opportunity, and then God will begin to open doors. He changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. Oh, yeah, but they stole the election. And do you think God didn't know what was going to happen before it happened? And if he didn't want it to happen, it wouldn't have happened. And you can get caught up with all of the conspiracy theories and stay on the internet 8-10 hours a day, or maybe, or the news channels, and listen to all the who's and the whys, who done it, and the finger pointing and everything like that. And for me, maybe not to you, but for me, all that stuff does is it just builds up a rage in me that I don't want. Daniel didn't use it as an excuse to apostatize. He didn't use it as an excuse to check out either. You understand that God had purposes for everything. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings, raises up kings. Nebuchadnezzar, you're doing it because God has allowed you to do it, no more and no less. And when your time's over with, God will take over. He gives wisdom to the wise, knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. To me, this is important stuff. Thank you, Andrea. Good morning, Flo and Joe. And thank you again, Andrea, because she knows I get involved, not looking at some of the details here that are helpful to you guys. He reveals deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. I thank you and praise you, O God of my fathers. You have given me wisdom and might, and have made and now made known to me what we ask of you, for you have made known to us the king's demand. So Daniel just doesn't say, well, we got it. Let's go on down to the king. No, he says, let's go before the King of Kings before we go talk to the king. And let's thank him. Let's make sure that he knows that we're on track with him. Therefore, now it's time to go to the king. Therefore, Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus to him, do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Take me before the king, and I will tell the king the interpretation. So Daniel asked for a little extra time, little reprieve. He got it. He goes now to Arioch, and he's going to tell Arioch, listen, we asked you for some time. God came through. Get me an appointment with the king. I have the answer to his request. And he goes and he says, don't destroy the wise men of Babylon. Do you think that Daniel is going to have some extra favor with all the other wise men? We're talking about the sorcerers. We're talking about, what were these other groups that we were talking? You don't think that he's going to, they're ready to bulldoze my house, and then Daniel stood up for us. Do not destroy the wise men of Babylon. Take me before the king. I will tell the king the interpretation. Favor with God and favor with man. Then Arioch quickly brought Daniel before the king and said thus to him, I have found a man of the captives of Judah who will make known to the king the interpretation. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, are you able to make known to me the dream which I have seen and its interpretation? Or are you just stalling for time? Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, the secret which the king has demanded, the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, and the soothsayers cannot declare to the king, but there is a God in heaven. Oh, Daniel, boy, that's why we love this boy. That's why we always. Daniel was known, listen, in the book of Ezekiel, we saw that Daniel was already known. He was still a young man when Ezekiel, what was it, about the 17th chapter, or maybe it was the 24th chapter of the book of Ezekiel, to where he was comparing him with two other wise Old Testament figures who had passed away centuries ago. One of them was Noah. But Ezekiel knew who Daniel was, and he credits him with the wisdom. Wasn't it Job and Noah and Daniel that Ezekiel spoke about? And Daniel, he's giving glory to the Lord. He's not taking the glory. He's not into self-promotion. Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, the secret which the king has demanded, the wise men, the astrologers, the musicians, and the soothsayers cannot declare it to the king. But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days. Your dream and the visions of your head upon your bed were these. I could see Nebuchadnezzar sitting on the edge of his chair and saying, Okay, tell me what you know. Let's see what you got. Bring it, Daniel. You got it? Bring it. And, Daniel doesn't set himself, well, those magicians and those soothsayers and those astrologers, they're lying to you. And they probably were most of the time. But he says, there's a God in heaven, never lies. His arm is not short. His ear is not deaf. But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets. He has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days. Your dream and the visions of your head upon your bed were these. As for you, O king, thoughts came to your mind while on your bed about what would come to pass after this, and he who reveals secrets has made known to you what will be. Remember, and I want you to highlight this, okay? Let me highlight it for you. There's a God in heaven, verse 28, who reveals secrets and is made known to the king what will be in the latter days, what will be in the time to come. We understand that term, the latter days, probably better than they understood it. As for you, O king, thoughts came to your mind while you read about what would come to pass after this. He who reveals secrets has made known to you what will be. But as for me, this secret has not been revealed to me, because I have more wisdom than anyone living. But for our sakes who make known the interpretation to the king, that you may know the thoughts of your heart. Remember, the God who knows the times and the seasons. This was at the beginning of a 70-year period that Israel was going to be in Babylon. But God had already stated that it was only going to be for a certain amount of time. And these are going to be some of the major points along the way that are going to allow, at the end of 70 years, for the Hebrews to go back to Israel. So I want to set that up. What will be in the latter days, okay? And for us, the latter days, we understand, if you're biblically, understand my premise, latter days of the last 2,000 years have been the latter days. Book of Acts chapter 2 bears that out. O king, you were watching, and behold a great image. Could you imagine Nebuchadnezzar right about now? He's asked for the impossible. What is impossible with man is possible with God. I'm sorry I get excited about it. I'm sorry for all the extra drama that comes along with it. But it just floats my boat, man. Wow. You, O king, were watching, and behold a great image. He does know. Let's see. This great image whose splendor was excellent stood before you. and its form was awesome. You saw a great image in your dream. The image's head was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You watched while the stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet. Iron and clay broke them in pieces. So this is what the king saw, and this is what Daniel saw also. Now everybody has seen it. The magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, the soothsayers, whoever else is around, they're seeing it. Oh, man. He saw an image. Huge old image. Its head was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly iron and partly clay. And you say, wow, that's the vision. But wait, the most important part of the vision is verse 34. That's another highlighter there. It's easy to get caught up in gold and silver and bronze and iron and heads and chests and waist and thighs and feet. But watch while the stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. And I'm guilty of really looking at the image and kind of minimizing the stone. But this is the most important part of the whole thing. You watched while the stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet, iron and clay, and broke them in pieces. I have been waiting for someone to make a logo for me for years from this verse. Someone that would be able to draw a mountain, a huge mountain, with a stone that came out from the middle of that mountain, the cornerstone. And I definitely can't do it. I don't have the wherewithal to do it. I can't sing, I can't draw. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, the gold were crushed together and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. The wind carried them away so that no trace of them was found. And the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. There you go. The important part again. I'm using my highlighter a lot again. The stone that struck the image became a great mountain. The gold, wow. The silver, okay. The bronze, not bad. The iron, pretty strong. But the stone struck the image, and it became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. It's a history lesson to us, but it wasn't a history lesson to them. It was insight into what was going to happen. I understand the word. Yeah, it was a history lesson to come. You say that's you're right. It is, but it was a prophetic statement. This is the dream. Now we will tell the interpretation of it before the king. Sit down, Nebuchadnezzar. We ain't finished yet. That's just the first half. We got more to tell you. Ooh. Glory. And he goes into the interpretation. You, O king, are a king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. Watch the witnessing. Watch. Oh, Daniel it slips it in there, always at the right time. O king, O Nebuchadnezzar, you're a big shot. But there's a God in heaven whom I will be very reluctant to call a bigger shot, because I don't know if that's kosher on Yom Kippur. It's the Lord of Lords, the King. You're a king of kings, but there is a king that is over all the kings, and a Lord who is over all the lords, who has allowed you. He has given you. God gave you. He knows the times and the seasons. He raises up kings and he pulls them down. He has given you a kingdom of power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of heaven, he has given them into your hand and has made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. We're going to give you the interpretation. And we're going to tell you that God has given you favor. You don't realize it. You know, I could imagine that Nebuchadnezzar sometimes says, man, this is kind of easy, man. We're this stuff, Alexander was going to say the same thing. Wow, this, we're just taking over all kinds of territories. We're just taking countries over left and right and being puffed up in the process. And he's probably saying, well, everybody asks the same question. What's it all about, man? Why? What's it all about? God has put eternity in our hearts. Well, Nebuchadnezzar, he didn't have to serve God. No, he didn't have to, but guess what? He had a heart that was asking questions the same way that your heart asks questions. Why? How come? Where do I fit in? What's it all about? And Daniel is giving him more than just an answer to a dream and its interpretation. He's giving Nebuchadnezzar the answer to that question, what's my life all about? You, O king, are a king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory, and wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field, the birds of heaven, he has given them into your hand, and has made you ruler. You're the head of gold. Oh, he sits up in his chair now and starts shining his nails. Oh, my God, I am the head of gold. But after you there shall rise another kingdom inferior to yours, then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over the earth. The fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, insomuch as iron breaks in pieces, shatters everything, and like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. Wow, I'm a head of gold. But you're not going to live forever. You're not going to reign forever. After you shall rise another kingdom, inferior to yours, but it's silver. Then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. These are talking about empires going to lead up to the virgin birth. The fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, insomuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything, like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. So he said, okay, we got a big image. The head is of gold, the chest is of silver, the waist is of bronze, the legs are of iron, and the iron is going to break all the other ones. That kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. Whereas you saw the feet and the toes partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with the ceramic clay. And as the toes and the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. What's that all about? Well, we're glad that you asked that question. Because this iron kingdom, which is going to crush the other ones, the gold, the silver, and the bronze, it's got mixture in it. It's got mixture in its feet. Not in its legs, but you get down to the feet and the toes, and you're going to find out that the iron is mixed with clay. They don't mix together. There's weakness, much weakness down in the foundation of it all. You saw the feet of toes, partly of potter's clay, partly of iron. Kingdom shall be divided, yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay. Good morning, Chana. Chana finally woke up. Let's all welcome Chana this morning. She's got a big trip this week, so she's catching up her rest. You're going to see it. It's because he says, this is the dream that you had. Here's the interpretation. Each material is a different empire. It's a different kingdom that's going to be. We have the kingdom of Babylon. Then after that, we're going to have the silver, which most people believe it will be the kingdom of the Persians. The Medo-Persia is what you're going to hear, the Medes and Persians coming together that were going to follow after Nebuchadnezzar and the Chaldeans was going to be the Medo-Persians. And then was going to be the bronze after that. And most people believe that that is the Grecian Empire. And then after that, you're going to get the iron, which most people believe was Rome. All this leading up to the virgin birth of the only begotten Son of God. All of them empires in their own rights. All of them had qualities. And they took over expansive areas of the world that they lived in. That's why they were known as empires. But don't forget the stone that was cut out of the mountain without human hands. Whereas you saw the feet and toes, verse 21, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, that the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. So, if this is talking about Rome, iron, the strongest of the materials, the hardest of the materials, then the gold. Gold is pretty soft. Silver, it's soft also. Bronze, a little bit harder, and iron, the hardest of them all. But the iron has mixture with it. The clay and the iron. And let me tell you, there's a spiritual component to this whole thing, because there's going to be principalities and powers that are going to be behind every one of these empires. But the Lord God is the one who's going to set them up and bring them down. Ultimately, it's not going to be Baal, Ashtoreth, Molech, or some other demon entity. It's going to be God Almighty who is going to set them up and or bring them down. That's not the one I want.
Blessed be the name of the Lord. He is worthy to be praised and adored. So we lift up holy hands in one accord, singing, blessed be the name. Blessed be the name, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name, blessed be the name of the Lord. He is worthy to be praised and adored. So we lift up holy hands in one accord, singing, blessed be the name, blessed be the name, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be the name, blessed be the name
KFKLYNLP on this Monday morning, the 25th day of September, also known as Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur 2023. And I don't know the proper month or the proper day on the Hebrew calendar. I barely can come up with some type of greeting that I found on the internet this morning, because you don't say to your Jewish friends, Happy Yom Kippur, like if it's, New Year's or Thanksgiving or something like that. No. You don't get away with that. You have to say, like, Gamar Chatama Tova. Or else you could shorten the version and go Gamar Tov. And they'll know what you're talking about. Anyway, that's what I found on the internet for us this morning. Interesting, very interesting. Well, one of these days we'll do a big study on the feast days. There's a lot of good ones that are out there that are available, but to understand is that the feast days, many, many, very, very eventful days happened right on that Jewish calendar, like Jesus dying on Passover. Passover started in Egypt thousands of years before Jesus died on the cross. Let's get into the second chapter, finishing off the book. And prayer line open at 505-425-3717. Prayer also as encouraged at cliff@klyn@gmail.com. Back here, take that off so I don't get them eyes staring at me. As the toes, verse 42, here's where we ended. As the toes of the feet were partly of iron, partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. This is an important feature. We talked a little bit. Well, the gold, we know who the gold is. You have to kind of figure out who the silver and the bronze is, and even into the iron. But there's a very, very interesting. As you saw, iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. Let me throw a monkey into your, what do they call it? A wrench into your gears, monkey into your, Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, so will it be at the end. You remember that 24th chapter? Isn't that the 24th chapter of the book of Matthew, where Jesus says, as it was in the days of Noah? What was happening in the days of Noah? Well, if you go to the 8th chapter of the book of Genesis, Mr. Missler really covered that real well last week on his program about the Nephilim, the mixing together of the clay and the iron. There's a lot of things going on over here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so we have the Babylonian Empire, followed by the Medo-Persian Empire. Big empires, swallowed up many, many, many countries, much of the land there in Eastern Europe, Asia, all that part of the world. Then after that, you have the Greeks that came in with like Antioch, was it Antiochus Epiphanes and Alexander the Great, and then after that you had the Romans came in. But there's more going on than just a Caesar or a Pharaoh. There's much more going on. As you saw, iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of man. I have to do this again. But they will not. Well, I thought they were all men. I thought we were talking about Babylonians and Persians and Greeks and Romans. Yeah, we are. But there's always this little hints that are sent in. They will not mix or adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all the kingdoms and shall stand forever. We learned that the iron kingdom was going to crush the other kingdoms. That's what it said in a few verses ago. But don't forget the stone that was cut out of the mountain. Just a little rock that was taken out of a big old mountain that was going to grow and grow and grow. We're talking about empires. We're talking about kingdoms. In the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. In the days of the Romans, a kingdom had been set up in a little manger in a stable in Israel. A little stone. In the days of the kings of God, a heaven, the kingdom shall never be destroyed. The kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms. It shall never stand. It's not going to be left just for anybody. It is going to be for sons and daughters of the king. The kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces, consume all the kingdoms. It shall stand forever. Inasmuch as you saw the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, the gold, the great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. The dream is certain, its interpretation is sure. Now you know why Nebuchadnezzar was so disturbed by this dream and had to have a real interpretation, and he was going to test them all and find out, you're not going to give me just the interpretation, you're going to give me the dream also. He knew it was important. Why? Because I believe that God had put it in his heart. But verse 45 says, you saw the stone was cut out of the mountain. That's the drawing I'm looking for, is a mountain with this stone that's coming out from it. It's going to break all these other kingdoms. And it's going to take down the kings like Nebuchadnezzar, Cyrus, Alexander, and Caesar's. Going to take them all down. And as much as you saw the stone that was cut out of the mountain without hands, it broke the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, the gold. The great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. The dream is certain, the interpretation is sure. You can take that to the bank, Nebuchadnezzar. Wow. History, baby. And, you can even go further than just, with the kings, the 10 toes. All of those things can probably lead you into a lot of other places. But remember, those toes were iron mixed with clay. They were going to be fragile. They don't adhere one to another. The seed of man does not adhere to the seed of any other living creature that's out there. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face prostrate before Daniel and commanded that they should present an offering and incense to him. The great King Nebuchadnezzar falls on his face toward Daniel. He humbles himself. Not for very long, and we'll get into that tomorrow. The king answered Daniel and said, truly your God is the God of gods, the Lord of lords, and a revealer of secrets, since you could reveal this secret. Wow, he says. Little old Israel has a God that, I don't know, man. Favor, ladies and gentlemen. In the middle of the testing, favor is falling upon Daniel, but God is being exalted in the midst of it. God is being lifted up high. The king answered Daniel and said, truly your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets, since you could reveal this secret. What do you think? What do you think Nebuchadnezzar was thinking about right now? I would say he says, I want to know your God. Daniel has already told him that this God is the one who raises kings up and pulls them down. And he's a revealer of secrets. Since you could reveal this secret. Big stuff, ladies. Big stuff going on. Then the king promoted Daniel, gave him many great gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and chief administrator over all the wise men of Babylon. If you were with us in Genesis, or you're familiar with the story of Joseph, Joseph shows up in Egypt as a slave. Same way that Daniel showed up, and these are demonic entities. Egypt and Babylon are demonic entities. And Joseph shows up, and he becomes prime minister after he's served in Potiphar's house, serves in prison, and then through the same type of events, God promotes him. Daniel, the same thing. Now he's number 2 of the land. Daniel was promoted and gave him many great. Then he promoted Daniel, gave him many great. He made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon. He says, "You take care of this province over here for me. You're going to be my vice president over this part over here, and chief administrator over all the wise men of Babylon." All these satraps and soothsayers and magicians, all these guys have been trying, all of them, he says, they're going to be under you. And I think they're going to be obedient because they say, you remember Daniel, man. He's the one that saved our skin, man. He saved us and our families along with it. Promotion, favor, trials, and testing. The king promoted Daniel, or was it God that promoted Daniel? Gave him many great gifts. He made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, chief administrator over all the wise men of Babylon. Also, Daniel petitioned the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon, but Daniel sat in the gate of the king. So whenever the king was out and around doing his thing, he knew that everything was okay at home because Daniel was there. And Daniel tells the king, I need some help here, man. This is a big job. My friends, you've interviewed them before. Come from the same place that I do. Huh? He says, let's get these guys into some powerful positions, and we'll keep this thing running nice and smooth, just the way that you want it, king. So Daniel petitioned the king, and he set Shadrach, I can't even say it now, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon, but Daniel sat in the gate of the king. Tomorrow we start in chapter 3. So now Nebuchadnezzar, and we're going to find out now, it's all going to go to Nebuchadnezzar's head. But God has his ways. So let's put a bookmark on chapter 3. And the way we do that is go to whatever number we want, the tabs that are on the side, like for number 1. And if I right-click, it's going to save the highlighted scripture as the tab. So when I go there, like let's say tab 2, we have Revelation 21:5. Okay, and that can be changed just by a right click. But if we go back with the left click on Daniel 3:1, it goes back there. So that's where we're going to be tomorrow. Thank you for watching, everybody. Thank you for being with us. Other programs, like I tell you, are up. Also, I can tell you is that prayer line is open till 8 o'clock at 425-3717.